Now on Radio 4, we soar towards Mediterranean shores in the company of Emily Knight and Britain's migrating birds as we continue with the flight of the Ospreys.
The Ospreys of the UK are well on their way, on their annual winter migration. They've travelled down the length of Britain, through France and south through Spain, to the southernmost tip of continental Europe. An outcrop jutting into the Strait of Gibraltar, called Tarifa. Here, the birds pause to take stock before one of the most hazardous parts of the entire migration, the Great Crossing from Europe into Africa. Hot on their wingtips are the flight of the Osprey team, the adventurer and biologist Sacha Dench and her crew of intrepid conservationists. They're tracking the birds along the flyway to discover the dangers they're facing and meet the people who are helping them along.
When you get into southern Spain, there's Tarifa and Gibraltar that stick out as 2 points where the birds have got the shortest migration across into Africa. So many different birds go through there, but there also have in the past been really significant risks due, in fact, to the really strong winds they have on that stretch of coast.
What have we got there?
Lots of black kites coming into this valley, just gaining height and going up. What's this one here? This one, oh, lovely honey buzzard.
We were hosted by Fundación Migres and a group called Inglorious Bustards.
Adult female honey buzzard.
Okay, knowing that it's female because...
This part of the world is a bottleneck, not just for the ospreys, but for every migrating bird that wants to cross from one continent to the other. The sky is thick with them, either solo or in flocks, carefully assessing the conditions, picking just the right moment to make the crossing. Sacha and Simon Tonkin from Inglorious Bustards sit and watch as they stream overhead.
It's very hard to not have your binoculars in your hand all the time here because there's so much that's coming. But what is it that is so special about this place, this valley, this headland?
Yeah, the Straits of Gibraltar is the epicentre of migration. It's, I'm just looking everywhere at the moment. There's stuff happening all around us as we're talking. Yeah, these birds are concentrating here because it's the narrowest sea crossing between Europe and Africa.
Yeah.
Only 14 kilometres away. But this is the most treacherous part of their journey, but yet it's only 14 kilometres of their massive journey that they're making. These birds are designed for soaring and for utilising thermals, which they can only get off the land. As soon as they go over the sea, there are no thermals. So, of course, these large winged birds designed for soaring flight are dropping quite a lot. And this is really dangerous for them. It must be a really scary moment for them. And sometimes they do ditch into the sea. This morning we've seen quite a few birds go out and then come back. And today they're struggling to see the coastline of Africa.
Right.
So they know it's there, but they can't see it. Maybe...
Yeah, I would turn back,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, exactly, I would as well, yeah. I mean, these guys, they're navigating around Saharan dust storms and all sorts of challenges on their routes. But for me, for them, it must be really daunting looking out there across the straits. This one, really nice booted eagle. See that white with a black trim. But you can also see the two headlights on it as well, those two little white dots on the leading edge of the wing near the head.
Oh, yeah. Okay. As they're gaining height, so they are drifting backwards because we are sitting in a very windy place.
Yeah, it's pretty windy here. There's always a wind here. Today we've have the Levante winds.
What does that mean?
Easterly winds.
Okay.
We have a lot of wind turbines in the area. It's about 18% of the Andalusians' requirement of energy, so that's quite a big jump.
From this point, we must be able to see at least 100 if you count the ones in the distance.
Yeah, there are more or less about 800 wind turbines. So Fundación Migres, who we are partnered with, the Inglorious Bustards are partnered with, and we work with counting and monitoring the passage of soaring and other migratory birds through the straits, came up with an idea, thinking about how about switching off the turbines to allow safe passage for the birds at certain points, and that's exactly what happens now. We have ornithologists who work for the power companies trained by Fundación Migres, watching if there are any birds passing, and then they switch off the turbines.
And we've seen someone coming in and out of the little hut on the hill.
Yeah, several times today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to switch them off if birds are approaching? Because obviously now there's a headwind, so they're moving quite slowly, but there'll be times when they're arriving with a tailwind, they might arrive quite quickly.
Yeah, and it takes less than a minute It was taking longer, but the system has developed over time. And that affects the output of energy by about 0.01%. So it's completely negligible for the
If you add up
power companies.
all the times the turbines are turned off in a year, okay?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of kind of how bad the problem was before the observation started? What sort of impact?
Yeah,
Switching
so
them off?
take a species as an example, so griffon vulture, which are particularly prone to flying into obstacles like that because they're so big-winged. Something like 370 collisions in a year.
Of griffon vultures?
Yeah, and then
Wow.
the first year doing it down to about 70. So suddenly there's a huge change in the impact on those birds.
Yeah, so how often do you see ospreys coming through?
Yeah, we see a lot of ospreys coming through. They're
Not a lot like kind of black kite numbers, not like 18,000 in a day.
Thousands of them, but
No.
yeah, we do expect a few hundred in a season, but yeah, they're going ones or twos a day. Well, we've seen two, right, crossing
Yeah.
today, which is really cool.
What is different about their method of approaching the straits?
Well, for one thing, they often are solitary. So we're seeing lots of groups of honey buzzards and black kites going together. But the ospreys almost shun them and just go straight out. And they power out as well. They make it look a lot easier compared to some of the other soaring raptors. And I guess that's because they're used to being out over water. And often one of the things we see, actually see them before they leave hunting along the coast as well. They sometimes even take a fish with them across the straits. Maybe have a little picnic in Morocco.
The ospreys may tackle the strait alone, but many bird species do it together, gathering in huge swirling flocks, spiralling up as high as they dare, and then streaming out over the sea.
Oh, that's really nice. That's a guineas.
Oh my God!
One of the most spectacular are the white storks.
Yeah, nice big group of white storks.
No! That is outrageous! It looks like an insect gathering. Can you see it to the left? Let's look at the big sand dune just to the left of that. Oh my God, that is unbelievable.
And in front there, we've got some bearded eagles.
What,
another
leading
honey
the pack?
buzzards. They're coming this way, so that's good news. So hopefully they will try and cross. That might bring them right over our heads, which is super awesome.
Okay. Oh my God, it's just so awesome.
While in southern Spain, the team took a day trip north to Seville, where a group called the Special Canine Unit are trying to tackle an issue that's a real problem in the local area: poisoning.
Poisoning has been one of the major threats. There's 4 cases of ospreys even being poisoned. So between 92 and 2017, 21,260 animals across Spain were found dead due to poisoning. So it's still a really big issue here.
The poisons have been illegal since the 90s, but it still happens. Local farmers and hunters, pigeon fanciers, even beekeepers lay poison baits to try and keep predator numbers down.
Pues mi nombre es José Luis, soy adiestrador y guía canina de la UCE.
My name is José Luis and I am the dog trainer at the Specialist Canine Unit. I've worked here for 17 years against the use of illegal poisons.
We went out with a team called K9 who were part of the anti-poisoning program, and their role is to go out with dogs.
Abby es un pastor alemán de trabajo.
My dog's name is Abby. She's a working German Shepherd.
They choose dogs which are very kind of reward orientated, but they can be of different species.
Bueno, nosotros a día de hoy estamos utilizando labradores, pastor belga, pastor alemán y border collie.
The dogs are a tool for the authorities, and I'm a guide for the dogs in complicated places. And right now we're using Labradors, Belgian Shepherds, German Shepherds and Border Collies. We use dogs with a lot of mobility, as they need to be able to go for long distances. The dogs are very well trained.
And they're trained yet to go out and identify poisons from the smell, different sorts of poisons. When we went out, they did find a hare that had been poisoned and had fallen into a well. We don't know if the hare was baited, so if poison was put into the hare and the hare was left there, or whether actually the hare has somehow picked up the poison. We don't know yet.
The problem with poison is it's indiscriminate. 4 osprey have been found poisoned recently, but no one really knows if they were the intended target.
Is that from poison that's ended up in a water course that's then poisoned a fish, and then there've been sick or dead fish that were easy to pick up by the osprey? Or was it fish that were baited? Whether people are particularly trying to bait ospreys that might be eating their fish is unknown, but I'm hoping to find out more.
Over this series, Sacha and the team have been following 3 tagged birds from the Tweed Valley in Scotland, who've been making the journey for the first time, fitted with GPS backpacks. Tweed, Kirk and Glen. Tweed has made it safely to Portugal and may remain there for the winter. Kirk, we think, has perished, blown far west out to sea, off the coast of Ireland. But their brother Glen has been having a curious adventure.
He was just down in Cornwall, just roosting and just sort of mooching around a sort of northwest tip of Cornwall near Hale.
Diane Bennett, project officer at the Tweed Valley Osprey project, has been following his progress.
And then just sort of took off on this quite determined directional flight as though heading down south again. And then just nothing, just the data just stopped.
The tracker records his location every 15 minutes, but it only sends the data back to base a few times a day, and only when it's in reach of cell towers. When a bird heads out to sea, it's a nail-biting wait before we find out what they've been up to.
I mean, really, I just began to think that something terrible had happened to him.
When I looked at the weather patterns on that day, 31 km/h winds he had, not taking him across into France, but out to sea. Yeah, well, at the point it had given no signal for 24 hours. We figured the chances were really slim.
And then we just had to wait until the data picked up again. And that wasn't until very late last night that it all downloaded and I could see the journey that he'd taken.
It pinged a signal from a tiny little rock on the northern tip of Spain.
If you look at Glen's route plotted onto a map, you'll see him winding his way southwards out over the ocean. Then he takes a poker straight line due southwest. He turns a perfect right angle, does a very short journey northwest, and then another dead straight line back the way he came, northeast.
All perfectly straight with perfect right angles in them.
3 sides of a long, thin rectangle. The team was flummoxed. What had he been up to?
I can only think from looking at the data that I think he's landed on a ship in the middle of the night. And then there is an about turn. You would think, did he jump off that ship onto another passing ship going in the opposite direction? I don't know. It's very strange. I can't really explain that.
The only possible explanation for that is that it has landed on the deck of a ship which is being programmed by GPS to do transects. So it could be a survey vessel, it's in particularly deep water. It could be a trawler doing mid-water trawling. But either way, it's very clearly ended up on a boat somewhere, and it's landed there at about 9 p.m. at night, so when it's got dark, and it's taken off again at about 9:30 the following morning and then headed south to Spain. Has that boat saved it? Before that, it would have been flapping solidly for about 24 hours. Which has got to be a long old journey for a bird, even for a strong osprey. So landing on a ship could have been exactly what it needed. In the end, the ship didn't give it much of an advantage in terms of distance.
It wasn't that much of an advantage, really, because it went nicely south for him, but then turned north. And then he's had to re-pick up the journey to come back south again. So
I mean, it's possible if it was a trawler that somebody actually put out some fish for it. So then it might have been a kind of advantage.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's really good news after a couple of very tense days.
In the next episode, the birds and the team reach Morocco.
Now we can see many wetlands that disappeared in the last years or are disappearing right now when I'm talking to you, like what's happening in Casablanca.
Flight of the Ospreys was presented and produced by Emily Knight.